All right, welcome to Blue Talk. This is my first official episode, and we're going to talk about Paralyzed by Policy. Once again, this is a all blue talk show, so it's for anybody and everybody. But I really want to hear back from a lot of my police colleagues. I don't consider this an information or teaching channel. I consider this an exchange of information between professionals. Hopefully you can learn something from me, and with your comments and feedback, I can learn some things from you. And in general and in total, we can all do better with this disaster of a career that we've picked. Okay, so today is Paralyzed by Policy and how to fix it. Sometimes you can't fix it because you're a little guy on the totem pole, and you can't fix it. So there's two ways I'm going to talk about this today. And I'm going to talk about, one, if you're an officer in an agency that's paralyzed by policy, the effects it has on you, and how do you combat those effects, or how do you get away from this department that is paralyzing you by policy, draining your life every day as you come into work miserable. And the second topic I'm going to hit as an administrator, as a leader, how you can fix your agency and not be so paralyzed by policy. So a perfect example of this paralyzation by policy is in Cleveland, Ohio. They had an incident several years back, actually a few incidents, that has turned the department into a paralyzed by policy agency. When these incidents happen, many departments, not just Cleveland, many departments across the United States will do a knee-jerk reaction and overcompensate for actions that have happened, instead of looking at the big picture and finding out the details of what happened. They are going to punish everybody. So as an officer and as an administrator, let's look at paralyzed by policy. So if you're an officer and you're in an agency that is paralyzed by policy, it's time to start looking for ways to get out of that agency. More than likely, you're miserable. More than likely, you complain all the time. More than likely, your morale is shot. More than likely, your leadership is just as afraid to do their job as you are. And it's not that you're afraid to do your job due to courage. It's afraid to do your job due to negative write-ups, due to negative looking at from your superiors. So as an officer, if your agency is paralyzed by policy, and I mean this agency that is constantly quoting their policy, writing their officers up, telling on each other, you're in a toxic environment and it's time to go. So you need to find yourself a new agency that may not be so paralyzed by policy. A lot of factors are driven into this policy, okay? Because a lot of cops will say, well, when I become a sergeant, when I become a lieutenant, when I become chief, these aren't, this is not the way I'm going to do things. In this business nowadays, you're influenced. The department's influenced by the news media, which we all know is a negative towards us. They're influenced by counsel, which is usually a lukewarm, neutral, or worse. It's because counsel doesn't really know what we do. Neither does the media. They have a basic look, a one-dimensional view. When we're on here making instant decisions, it's three-dimensional. So if you're an officer in an agency that's paralyzed by policy and there's no change coming soon, it's time for you to start looking for those agencies that are going to be beneficial for you. The morale is probably shot where you're at, which is one of the most important things in a department, which leadership has forgotten about nowadays. So it's time to start looking for a department that may fit you better. Okay? Every department has its own culture. So if you don't fit in that culture, then it's time to start looking. Because we all know that there's the pretty boys that everybody loves, and then there's the road guys that nobody likes. There's always teams on every department that you're going to work at. So if you're paralyzed by policy and you're miserable, stop putting up with it. Put your best foot forward and try to find an agency to get to where you can enjoy this job. Because honestly, you're supposed to have fun at work, regardless if you're a police officer or not. So that's for the road guys out there who's working in these miserable conditions at a department that's paralyzed by policy. Administrators, I want to talk to you now. If you have some input on policy and input on how your department works, this is great information for you because I've done it firsthand. So what I want to talk about is to administrators is I need you to re-examine or consider re-examining several policies that you have. we know recruitment numbers are down, and if you're trying to get great candidates into your department, you're going to have to look at a few different policies and get with the times. Let's look at your facial hair policy. Okay, nowadays, even your old school guys like to have some facial hair. It's just trendy now, and it's just in. So take a look at your facial hair policy. Tattoo policy. I understand neck tattoos, and I understand certain tattoos, but I think you need to readdress your tattoo policy because that's affecting your agency, your officers that are there, and the officers that are potentially looking to come to your agency. Your social media policy. Some are so restrictive that guys can't even have a good time on social media without being so restricted from their departments. Look at that policy. Awards policy, administrators. I'd like to talk real quick about this. This is going to be a different topic coming up. But let's talk about your awards policy and your write-ups policy. When is the last time somebody at your agency got an award? I'll wait. Very rare for that to happen. But I bet you can cite 10 different write-ups in the last few months. You need to, as an administrator, and you need to start making these things balance out. If you're going to write somebody up, make sure that we have a system in place that you're going to utilize your awards system. Morale is super important, and we're forgetting about that because you're stuck on the policy. So, awards, let's work on that. Do an awards banquet every year. Do something like that. If it's a major incident, let's do it right now. But let's recognize our officers. That's going to help with their morale and keep your retainability. Your write-ups. Administrators, I want to talk to you about your write-ups and how you're handling them. An officer shouldn't get written up for being 15 minutes late due to a dental appointment, traffic, whatever may have happened. Shouldn't be written up, and it shouldn't be in his file permanently. Now, if you want to do a write-up, I understand that. Corrective action. But I ask you to consider this. Make your write-ups either 30, 60, or 90 days, and then the officer can ask to have that removed. Have a meeting with that officer, talk about the actions that they did to get the write-up and what they've done to fix that issue. So 30, 60, or 90 days. Minor infractions might be 30 days. A middle ground infraction might be a 60-day write-up, and something major could be a 90-day, 180 days, however you want to conform it. It could be a permanent write-up that goes in their file. That's fine. But let's have some options instead of jamming somebody and they've got this write-up in their file 10 years later that's going to be scrutinized by the media and other police organizations. Start taking care of your guys a little bit more with that. All right, so just want to recap. I want to keep these things to about 10 minutes or so. If you're in an agency as an officer that's paralyzed by policy, it's time to start finding your way out. Start looking for a cultured police department that fits you, that matches more of you. All money is not good money. Don't be miserable every day of work. This job is hard enough. Okay? And if you're an administrator, start looking at some of your policies. Start loosening up some things. One more thing I forgot. Your vest, outer vest. Some agencies will not go to the outer vest. It's been proven that it's better for your officers' back. It's more organized. It's a better fit, a better feel for your officers. Look at all these policies that can help loosen the restrictions on your officers without increasing your liability. So the ones I wanted to talk about were facial hair, tattoo, social media policy, your awards program, and your write-ups. Administrators, look at some of these things. It's going to keep your officers, it's going to keep them there and happy, and it's also going to attract better officers to come to your agency. Thanks for coming into Blue Talk with me. I'd love to hear your comments. Please leave your comments. Subscribe to my page. It would be fantastic. I'm going to do something about once a week. And that's it. Be safe out there. And if you have any questions, my email is going to be down in the description as well. Feel free to talk with me. Consider this an open forum, and nobody's better than anybody. We're all here to make this job better. I'd love to know your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in to Blue Talk.